Into a group of Israeli soldiers in Jerusalem, killing 4 and injuring 15. Police say the vehicle veered off course and hit them as they got off the bus. The lorry driver was shot dead. It follows a period of Palestinian attacks which have killed 40 Israelis. In that same time, nearly 230 Palestinians have died from Israeli fire. Let's hear now from a tour guide who saw the attack as it happened.
I was one of the tour guides. There were about 10 groups of soldiers, every group about 30 soldiers, that we came together to a group. And I was in one of the buses. We got down off the bus and we went here on the promenade. I started to guide, and after a few minutes I just heard my soldiers screaming, and I was concentrated in my guided tour and in my explanations, and at a certain point I just saw the truck going from the road onto the sidewalk and just hitting the soldiers, and it took me some time to understand that it was a terror attack, and the soldiers started shooting on him, and it took some time till they got able to kill him, and he got time to make reverse with his truck and just to wound and kill other soldiers.
Well, I'm joined now by our Middle East analyst, Sebastian Usher. Sebastian, in the meantime, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the driver was a suspected supporter of IS, but they've given little detail as to why they think that.
Yes, he hasn't actually suggested whether it's known that the driver had links or whether it's a supposition based on the fact of the method that was used, that he used a truck, as we've seen with other IS attacks in Europe recently. I think that's probably where it stands at the moment. And we haven't yet seen any real involvement or claim by IS of attacks against Israelis. I mean, this is a concern and a fear that there's been, but it's not one which is so far really crystallized into a real threat. But of course, the potential is there.
And the way in which it was worded was that this was a Palestinian supporter of IS, and as we know...
That's very open. I mean, essentially what IS does is it lays out its ideology and it encourages people to act in its name, and it encourages them to take action by themselves. Now, we've seen this wave of attacks by Palestinians in the past almost year and a half, often using knives, guns, occasionally vehicles like this, although that's much rarer. And that has sown, a new form of fear amongst Israelis. It's caused, obviously, more tensions again. But it's not something which has morphed yet into a sense that this is in any sense led or dominated by IS. I mean, I think that's a very, very big step to take.
So if this were found to be an attack that had been coordinated by IS, this would be a big new move?
It would be. It wouldn't be the absolute first, but it would show that there is a new tendency, and the type of attacks that we've been seeing again in Europe, you would think that there might be more chance of that happening again in Israel. But as I say, there have been so many of these lone wolf attacks by Palestinians. I mean, they had subsided in the past few months, but go back 6 or 7 months and they were happening on an almost daily basis. So it didn't need IS to create those conditions where people were being encouraged to go out and carry out such acts. It's the scale, perhaps, which would be the concern. I think that the motivation is already there amongst young Palestinians. It doesn't need IS to come in and do that. The state of the peace talks such as they are, the Palestinians feeling that there's a drift away from two-state solution, all of these things is leading to a hopelessness amongst people, which has been one of the contributing factors to the violence that we've seen.
So here we are, 4 Israeli soldiers are dead, several are injured. What sort of response can we expect now from the Israeli government?
Well, I mean, clearly we're seeing a ramping up of security in the area. I mean, this is a tourist area as well, so it's not just... I mean, this is something which was targeted to hit Israel in its, most tender place, really. I mean, these are young Israeli soldiers. They're women as well. This is just by the old city. This is an area, which is known for its tourism potential, and so it's hitting Israel in those ways. So Israel will obviously strike back. Really, I think it's more at the moment. I mean, obviously there'll be action taken once they discovered who the person is who carried out the attack. There'll be, as Israel usually does, they will perhaps demolish the house belonging to the family. Recently, Israel said that they would not return the bodies of attackers if they came from Hamas. Now, there's no suggestion at the moment this is to do with Hamas, but that's another move that they've made. But I think it will be more in the sense that the Israelis and the hardline position that they've been taking will be re-strengthened, and with the new president coming in the US, who seems to be more akin in his thinking perhaps to that way, we could see a much harder line again being taken by Israel, in response also to developments recently, for example, the UN vote about the settlements, which Israel very much dislikes. So I think that's the main significance of this, but we will see a hardening, a re-hardening of the line in Israel to do, I think, with negotiations with the Palestinians.
Okay, Sebastian.